Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the opening day of Lit Luz. We are so pleased you are here. My name is Joel Craig. I am the poetry editor for Make Literary magazine. I'd like to thank you again for coming out tonight, and thanks especially to the Poetry Foundation for helping us host such a wonderful event. I have been stressing about this introduction all week, I must confess. Though I have introduced hundreds of poets in my life, I have never until now written a formal introduction or given a formal introduction. I don't know how to write or give a formal introduction, or a practical introduction that will serve as a guide to your expectations. I'm paranoid because of all the negative things I've heard over the years about formal introductions. Formal introductions go on too long, have more to do with the ego or narcissism or worldview of the introducer rather than the talent and accomplishments of the introduced. Or worse, it's a therapeutic process, propaganda. Dale Breckenridge Carnegie, huckster self-improvement guru, once said, "The sweetest sound in the world is one's own name." Daniel Borzutzky, when I hear your name, it all just sounds like Daniel Borzutzky, who said, "I don't much understand the so-called value of using language economically. One needs to make a mess to write about the darkness that surrounds us." And darkness does surround us. Daniel makes persistent, profligate, concurrent agitations, but I wouldn't call them messes. In Daniel's poems, there aren't enough synonyms for our state mendacity, cultural debris, harassed labor, or tortured bodies, nor enough syntax for comfort amid all the absurd misfortune. So I will leave it to single words: intuitive, audacious, humble, funny, satiric, patient, and flagrant, jargoned, loving, words smashed out of the sky. Daniel Borzutzky is the author of 4 books, including the Book of Interfering Bodies and the forthcoming In the Murmurs of the Rotten Carcass Economy, both from Night Boat Books. His poetry translations include Raul Zurita's Song for His Disappeared Love and Jaime Luis Huenun's Port Trackle, both from Action Books. Daniel is also the Spanish language poetry editor for Make. I'm very glad to call him a friend, so please give a warm welcome to Daniel Borzutzky.
Thank you, Joel. That was a really very, very warm, nice introduction. Thank you all for coming, and thank you to Sarah Dodson for organizing this incredible festival and for the various events that are happening this week. I'm going to read 3 pieces. The last one will include video, and I will explain a bit when I get there. Let light shine out of darkness. I live in a body that does not have enough light in it. For years, I did not know that I needed to have more light. Once, I walked around my city on a dying morning, and a decomposing body approached me and asked me why I had no light. I knew this decomposing body. All that remained of it were teeth, bits of bone, a hand. It came to me and said, "There is no light that comes out of your body." I did not know at the time that there should have been light in my body. It's not that I am dead. It's not that I am translucent. It's that you cannot know you need something if you do not know it is missing. Which is not to say that for years I did not ask for this light. Once, I even said to the body I live with, "I think I need more light in my body." But I really did not take this seriously as a need, as something I deserved to have. I said, "I think I need for something blue or green to shine from my rib cage." Other times when I am talking about lightness, I am talking about breath and space and movement. For it is hard to move in a body so congested with images of mutilation. Did you hear the one about the illegal immigrant who electrocuted his employee's genitals? Did you hear the one about the boy in Chicago whose ear was bitten off when he crossed a border he did not know existed? I want to give you more room to move, so I'm trying to carve a space with light for you to walk a bit more freely. This goes against my instincts, which are to tie you down, to tie you to me, to bind us by the wrist, the belly, the neck, and to look directly into your mouth, to make you open your mouth and speak the vocabulary of obliteration right into your tongue, your veins, your blood. I stop on a bridge over the train tracks and consider the history of the chemical melting of my skin. Once, when I poured a certain type of acid on my arm, I swore I saw a bright yellow gas seep out of my body. Once, my teeth glowed sick from the diseased snow they had shoved into my mouth when they wanted me to taste for myself, to bring into my body the sorrows of the rotten carcass economy. Once, I dream wrote that I found my own remains in a desert that was partially in Chile and partially in Arizona. Was I a disappeared body tossed out of an airplane by a bureaucrat soldier compatriot? Or was I a migrant body who died from dehydration while crossing the invisible line between one civilization and another? I was part of a team of explorers. We were searching for our own bodies. In the desert, I found my feet, and I put them in a plastic bag and photographed them, cataloged them, weighed and measured them, and when I was finished with the bureaucratization of my remains, I lay down in the sand and asked one of my colleagues to jam a knife into my belly. She obliged, but when the blade entered my skin, it was as if my belly were a water balloon. The water shot into the air. My skin ripped into hundreds of pieces, and I watched as the water covered the feet of my colleagues who were here to document their disappearances and decomposition. It was at this moment that I saw light in my body, not sun over the sand, but a drip of soft blue on a piece of skin that had fallen off my body and dissolved into its own resistance. Dream song number 423. Then I stepped out of the sea and into a bonfire on the beach, and the beach became a prairie, and the prairie began to reproduce itself. For miles and miles, we walked along the fence until we reached an abandoned factory where the workers had all died from dehydration when the manager told them they could no longer afford to have water. Too much time tomando agua, compadre, equal not enough time making t-shirts. Not enough time making t-shirts. Cabroncito equal not enough money to pay you. Mijito, not enough money to pay you equal the sidewalk, the park bench, the coyotes banging your head against the side of the trunk. Don't need my intestines, jefecito. Don't need my feet, patroncito. Don't need ojos, cara, pelo, none of that shit they don't let you torture at the United Nations. These were the final words of the borderless body as it crumbled into the sand. I don't remember how the song ends. I think there was a landscape, and we put a curtain over it, and the children came out running when we pulled up the curtain, and they jumped into mountain number 423. And they looked for their mothers and fathers, but all they found were sheep and goats and lepers. In the last verse, we sang a song about the Statue of Liberty, the fastest woman in all of Mexico. I love her sing the generals and the CEOs. I love her, sing the Bolivians and the Peruvians. I love her, sing the beggars and the bankers. I love her rusted body, sing the pornographers and the doctors. I love her reverie, her darkness, her malleability, sing the professors. I love her, sings the poet, because she reminds me of my mother. And my mother reminds me of myself, and I remind myself of my father and all the mouths he needs to feed. I hate living. I do nothing. I love deserts and cacti and the infinite tunnels where my dream song turns into a blood song, splattered from a mouth into a puddle of exploding ventricles, bust up pasaportes, and hypnotized halos of light.
I'm Johannes Johansson. I'm the publisher of Action Books. I just published Valerie Meyer's first book in English, so Rain of the Future, and I'm going to introduce her. First of all, I want to say thanks to Make Magazine and to the Poetry Foundation. I think this is really cool. In American culture, we've had an ambivalent relationship to translation for a long time. After all, the most famous, as I like to point out, the most famous definition of poetry in American poetry is that poetry is what's lost in translation, which is what Robert Frost said. And even translators seem very much concerned with the impossibility of translation, which is often meant as a criticism, even though impossibility is generally what poetry is, the domain of poetry and art. A lot of the skepticism, I think, about translation comes from, I realize now, this is one of those introductions that we were warned about, so I'll skip through this. But one of the anxieties come from the fact that you lose the self-contained object that sort of needed for a new critical reading, or for new historicists, you lose a kind of stable idea of context. I always found these to have very little to do with art, because art seems much more dynamic than that to me. I never thought the poem as exemplifying some kind of stable cultural trait, but rather to be something that opened up a zone where contexts and translations and originals could all interact in different ways. And of course, those interactions are not always, as Daniel's video showed, are not always pleasant or smooth sailing. Often they're violent, often they may be issues of infection or crashing through each other. But also poets are not standing always in the center of cultures. Poets are often moving on the peripheries of culture, or are exiled from their cultures, or traversing boundaries when they write. And Valerie Meyer's work to me is super interesting, partly because of the way it seems to deal with what is foreign and what is heimlich and unheimlich, homely and secret, and new discoveries as well as nostalgias. In difference to this kind of trend in academia of global literature, I like to think of Valerie's hallucinatory, stunning visual writing as creating something like global uncanny, where this kind of violence that comes out of crossing national boundaries actually come out, so that when in her poem From the Wave, the way begins, quote, "In green water I saw your eye, and in it I saw the Arabian palace filled with birds and broken glass." Or in her poem Uncanny, number 5, "The animal, the old dead animal, fed on newspapers. How could I have known it was me, prehistoric as I was and blue-eyed?" Because also, like, what I think translation does is often open up anachronistic energies, not just between boundaries, but between periods of time. The great Chilean poet Raúl Zurita writes about Valerie. Valerie Meyer keeps writing poems that in their disconsolate perplexity disclose a sweeping prospect in which biography, landscape, memory, and dream erase their respective margin, making clear to us that what we come to call existence is simply a modality in which we claim our right to weakness, defeat, hemorrhage, because only through radical vulnerability can the urgency of love arise. And just as Sarita sees radical vulnerability in the cross-contamination between dream and poem and memory, we can also see it in the contamination between languages. For example, how in Valerie's poem Uncanny number 2, Las Yeguas de la Noche becomes nightmare, as if there's a nightmare hidden in the translation, a secret that could only be uncovered through translation.
So thank you, Johannes. Thank you so much. And thank you, Paul. Welcome. Thank you, Paul, for making this beautiful interpretation and so flattering. And thank you for the Poets House. Thank you, Michael, for having us here, having en su casa ahora es mi casa, en lugar de mi casa es su casa. Thank you so much. So this is going to be the opera prima of me reading in English. So be kind or patient or whistle if you think it's terrible, and then I call very generous Borzutzky offered to substitute me. But be fair, so be honest, okay? And I'm going to read first the English because I think then the Spanish is going to be easier for you to get than if I read the Spanish first. From the wave, the way. In green water I saw your eye, and in it I saw that Arabian palace filled with birds and broken glass. I copy another's into my right hand and fill myself with memories of sounds. A green fish emerges from seaweed, a seaweed from a wave that rises like the welling wall. My sun-baked body at the edge, wind in my lungs, its whistle, my torn world, my grief, my soggy passport, my shell with no pearl, you lift them, delicate cloud, into a liquid world. Last night, I dream of my father's flabby body and of my blue resolve to run away, to find a way. I dreamed of your eye, and for an instant, I found the vertex of the road, the imaginary line that falls across the earth. That meridian where the sun on a tiger's back meets the shade on its belly. Waking up, we're swallowed by wakefulness. The house swallows us in its terrible thirst. The routine of taking our children to school swallows us, and so does the "if only I could." There was something to that dream, you know it, a direction, a way, a forest as green as you and your roots. Give me your premonitions, give me your book, give me your prodigious memory, give me the blue gaze from your dark eye, give me the devotion of your sleeping birds. Sometimes the way is a fire, through which the circus tiger leaps a perfect circle, returning to me with its stripes intact and with the endless continuity of its ineluctably feral world. And now, I'm going to read you the Spanish. De la ola el atajo. En el agua verde vi tu ojo y de adentro vi ese palacio árabe pleno de aves y de vidrio roto. Yo copio una dirección en mi mano derecha y me lleno de recuerdos de salmos. Un pez verde es al alga como el alga es a la ola, que se alza como el muro de las lamentaciones. A mi cuerpo seco en la frontera, a mi viento en los pulmones, a su silbido, a mi mundo desgajado, a mi pena, a mi pasaporte enmohecido, a mi concha sin perla, te los llevas leve en húmedo a un mundo líquido. Anoche soñé con el cuerpo flácido de mi padre y con mi perseverancia azul de escapar, de encontrar un atajo, soñé con tu ojo y por un instante encontré el vértice del camino, la línea imaginaria que inclina un poco la tierra, eje a través de un tigre que asolea su lomo más que su panza. Al despertar, somos devorados por la vigilia, nos devora la casa y sus afanes de agua, nos devora el llevar a nuestros hijos a la escuela y el tal vez, si yo pudiera. Había algo en ese sueño, tú lo sabes, una dirección, un atajo, un bosque verde como tú y tus raíces. Dame tus premoniciones, dame tu libro, dame tu prodigiosa memoria, dame la vista azul de tu ojo oscuro, dame el recogimiento de tus aves dormidas. A veces el atajo es un incendio que el tigre del circo atraviesa en un círculo perfecto y vuelve a mí con sus rayas intactas, con la infinita continuidad de este necesario mundo salvaje. So this poem was translated by Forrest Gander, and I'm gonna, since I love what you said of global uncanny, never forget that phrase in my whole life. So then I'm gonna read one of the uncannies that in the Spanish version I named them on Heimlich, and even when I'm from a German background, the explanation, and I'm sure it's not pronounced that way, Johannes would know better. The poet, an Italian poet that made a beautiful movie about nostalgia and melancholy with Tonino Guerra, the one that made all the scripts of La Naveva and all those things from Fellini, explained to me that on Heimes, what is inside of the house and not familiar, the familiar against the unfamiliar. But he gave me this incredible example that I have to share with you, that Freud started using the word since he had a dream where all his family was together, and there was Martha and Anna and everybody, the usual thing, they were eating the same thing, everything, with the tiny exception that they were all speaking in Japanese. And for the Spanish audience, this is going to be very familiar because it addresses a museum that is now near my home, that is el Museo de las Momias de Guanajuato. And Mexico is completely uncanny altogether. You know, if you go there, you'll feel that way. On the sun-blazed side of the animal's head, there was a fly. The rest remained in shadow. The novel blurs the sex scene, and the television started into their white noise. Two small hands covering a red face in a newspaper, all too human, something the novel would render only skeletically. In the supernatural whiteness of its narration, better render are the facts of sleep and the repose that drag you down, as they drag your own body at the edge of abyss, not so imposing. At night, I wrote on wet blue roof what I really wanted to say. Before that day, in a museum of mummies, we'd seen two French doctors, a Chinese woman, a drowned man, and a woman whose hands, frozen above her face, seemed to be trying to push something upward. She'd awakened from an attack of catalepsy in her cure box. All the rest were from Guanajuato, including the 6-month-old baby displayed on a pedestal in front of the gash from which it had just emerged. Returning along the road, we glimpsed a pack of ostriches returning behind the fence, tall and fast. In the wet roof, I wrote all of this. The dead have the right to be buried, but the soil outside the town is so salty they mummify. By now, it must be clear, I'm not from around here. On Heimlich 3. En la cabeza soleada del animal había una mosca. El resto descansaba en la sombra. La novela desdibuja la escena de sexo y las televisiones entran a un tiempo en su ruido blanco. Dos manitas cubren una cara roja. Es un periódico, algo demasiado humano, algo que una novela dejaría en los huesos, en el blanco sobrenatural de la narración. Mejores son los hechos de un sueño y el descanso al que te arrastran, como arrastran a un cuerpo cerca de un abismo nada temible. En la noche escribí sobre un techo húmedo y azul lo que quería decir en realidad. Antes de eso, ese día, habíamos visto un museo de momias donde había dos médicos franceses, una mujer china, un náufrago y una mujer que tenía las manos sobre la cara, como empujando hacia arriba. Había despertado un ataque de catalepsia dentro de su humilde caja. Los demás muertos eran del rumbo, incluso el bebé de 6 meses al que sentaron sobre un pedestal frente a la incisión de la que salió. Al volver, vimos por el camino una cerca llena de avestruces corriendo, altas y veloces. En el techo húmedo escribí todo esto. Ellos tienen derecho a una sepultura y la tierra tiene demasiada sal por estos lares. Se ve que no soy de aquí. Paréntesis. Nothing's in the nest, no needles, no newborn ravens. Maybe something like night in the deep hollow, an eggshell planet, cracked in the middle, an empty bowl of soup. Nothing in the nest, no thread, no web of words. Maybe something like my navel, the eclipse of a magnifying glass. I slice, mute with regard to its emptiness, empty depths. In the nest, nothing, the web unwoven, dismembered. In the space, something, yes, a piece of cloth, sounding like flags taking wing, a worm in its beak, and suddenly eyes, my eyes, which, cutting across the empty air, direct themselves at something noiseless over there. Paréntesis. No hay nada en el nido, ni agujas, ni cuervos recién nacidos. Si algo que se parece a la noche al fondo de un cuenco, un planeta hueco, partido del centro, un plato de sopa vacío. No hay nada en el nido, no hay hilo, no hay palabras en trama. Si hay algo semejante a mi ombligo, una luna eclipsada, rodaja el espacio sin habla de un cuenco vacío. En el nido no hay nada, destejida la trama, desmembrada. En el espacio si hay algo, una tela, suenan como banderas las que son unas alas, en el pico un gusano y enseguida unos ojos, los míos, que van hacia allá, donde hay algo sin ruido y se agita en el aire vacío. This, I will ask Daniel to come and read with me. Just because probably the emotional ingredient of this poem will prevent me from speaking proper English.
The denouement. Caught by a tropical breeze, a Christmas tree tumbles 3 floors. But what might be the final tragedy is only the first fall of many. The father tosses it out. The spheres explode, reds and greens tinkling like hail. The toad, startled from its pail, spits up a white comet tail, not a star. The girl screams. The more history ratchets up the violence, the less the characters speak to her, to themselves, to others. The rhythm is suffocating. It seems I can make out your voice as the sky is flocked with ewes, and such a lull can seem evangelical. That time you noted one of my bones, I strung it into the night sky's necklace. The rest is profane. Drawing pictures of hundreds of falling bodies before your brother falls. That isn't presentiment. It's a word in a poem with its breath knocked out. You caress the surface of a phrase as if it were a face, as if your gesture might help it find its fullness. And maybe it does, despite that the denouement comes long before the poem ends.
So this poem is dedicated to my brother who jumped from a window in Edinburgh in 2005. El desenlace. Arrastrado por una brisa tropical, un árbol de Navidad cae 3 pisos. Esto, que podía ser el final trágico, es solo una de las primeras caídas. El padre lo arroja, las esferas se revientan, rojas y verdes suenan como granizo. El sapo sale de su cubeta y escupe una estela blanca. No una estrella, la niña grita. Mientras más violenta es la historia, menos hablan los personajes de sí, consigo, con otros. Hay un ritmo irrespirable. Se me figura que he hablado contigo mientras el cielo se enjambra de ovejas y tal receso me parece evangélico. Un día hablaste de un hueso mío y yo lo engarcé en el collar del cielo. El resto es profano. Dibujar cientos de cuerpos que caen antes de que tu hermano caiga no es un presentimiento, es una palabra en un poema sin aliento. Acaricias la superficie de una frase como si fuera una cara, como si eso le ayudara a encontrar un destino. Y tal vez sí, aunque el desenlace puede ocurrir mucho antes de que se termine el poema. So in these recent days, Daniel Borzutzky started a whole cycle of readings. We just witnessed the first one. And you know, Mallarmé created a series of readings that were called Les Mardiennes because they happened on Tuesday. Now this is going to be, and we hope, the Dimanche, because they're going to happen on Sundays. And it was here the great Cuban poet Omar Pérez. So in his honor, I'm going to read something I wrote in Cuba. Well, there's a whole section in this book about Cuba because talking about uncanny. And we can, let's see, there's a little one because we should aim for the little, that is called Hotel Havana, Hotel Inglaterra. One second. Aquí está. I walked the city with an electric heart. I burned through that elusive city retreating in my dreams. Returned to the side of the Malecón and across the Obispo Street. In an empty pharmacy, I buy a remedy with play money. I know that I'm a prisoner of surf. Little Havana, stern girl, float back chameleon-like towards the black tree until you wake, until we waken. So now to finish this reading, I'm going to read something from the book that I have in process. And for this, I'm going to call Mr. Borzutzky again. And this is called in English, The Whole Hunger of My Life.
Whole hunger of my life. In a sown interior dressed in it, where I sit to hear a lullaby that I had never heard. Each flower has its own mountain. And just as I get used to being here between mountain ranges that clutch us in their fists, there is no sight outside of the universe, no sight where I can enter without feeling my whole life's hunger. Desperate, she tore from her neck the necklace, and the beads went flying. Look how the planets resemble those corals. She thinks of Saturn now, of its rings, and now of that early morning, him leaving your house beneath the rain. All sad things are alike, and that tear resembles the others. Show me your human side and your torso. Tell me something. So the sea's distant foam enters the room while you are running out of the face you wear on the street. A god sweetly conceals itself on your forehead, intimidated like a small, panicked animal. I'm going to stay here until it decides to leave. I have bread, the fire burning, some soup. Time. Those who know they're righteous, you must live and love and never die. You must obey the ads, and why not at the same time, Schopenhauer. And you must also abhor it all, feel the tunnel that opens inside your house, where what's missing is better than what's left over. The space is better, the large space that lets you watch at your leisure the cold show of the night sky.
Gracias, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. And I want to thank the translation of this poem to a great young American poet, Torin Johnson. And with this I'll close. Toda el hambre de mi vida, en un interior cosido a mi alrededor, vestida de él, donde me siento a oír una canción de cuna que nunca había escuchado. Cada flor tiene su propia montaña. Y yo que apenas me acostumbro a estar aquí entre cordilleras que nos retienen en su puño. No hay un sitio afuera del universo, un sitio a donde yo pueda entrar sin sentir toda el hambre de mi vida. Desesperada ella arrancó de su cuello un collar y las cuentas salieron volando. Mira cuánto se parecen los planetas a aquellos corales. Piensa ahora en Saturno, en sus anillos, y ahora en él esa madrugada saliendo de tu casa bajo la lluvia. Todas las cosas tristes se parecen entre sí, y esta lágrima se parece a las otras. Muéstrame tu lado humano y tu torso. Dime algo para que la espuma, la lejana espuma del mar, entre al cuarto, mientras te vas quedando sin la cara que llevas a la calle. Dulcemente un dios se oculta en tu frente, arredrado como un animalito en pánico. Aquí me voy a quedar hasta que se anime a salir. Tengo pan, la lumbre encendida, algo de sopa, tiempo. Llevan razón los que saben, hay que vivir y amar y nunca morir. Hay que hacer caso a los anuncios y, ¿por qué no?, al mismo tiempo a Schopenhauer. Y hay también que aborrecerlo todo, sentir el túnel que se abre adentro de tu casa, donde es mejor lo que falta que lo que sobra. Es mejor ese espacio, el gran espacio que te permite mirar a tus anchas el frío espectáculo de este cielo nocturno. Muchas gracias.
Buenas noches. Es un gran honor para mí presentar a Luis Felipe Fabre. Nació en la Ciudad de México en 1974. Es un escritor mesurado, publica poco, sin embargo, todo lo que publica es muy interesante, increíble y estoy un poco nerviosa porque además lo quiero muchísimo. Pero bueno, les cuento un poco de su trayectoria. En 2005 publicó Leyendo Agujeros, un libro de ensayos. En 2007 publicó Cabaret Provenza, un poemario. Después publicó La sodomía en la Nueva España en el 2010. Después Poemas de terror y de misterio, es su libro más reciente, de 2013. También ha antologado a jóvenes poetas mexicanos, Divino Tesoro y La Edad de Oro. Es muy importante, fomenta mucho la unión, digamos, en esa generación de jóvenes poetas, tiene un papel crucial en México entre los jóvenes poetas. También es editor de La Galleta China, una revista de arte y literatura. Todos los originales serán destruidos es el título de la exposición en la que invitó a jóvenes poetas a llevar a cabo piezas de arte que de alguna forma eran la extensión de sus poesías. Recientemente se va a llevar también a cabo una versión en ópera de La sodomía en la Nueva España. Y el próximo año, en la primavera, la Ugly Duckling Press de Nueva York va a traducir una selección de su trabajo junto con una selección de Sor Juana, de tal modo que cuestiona lo que es contemporáneo, qué es lo contemporáneo, y este muy talentoso joven poeta, a la par que Sor Juana, como todo lo que leemos hoy. Y además de todo eso, para mí es un privilegio enorme que sea mi amigo, así que no sé qué más decir. Va Luis Felipe.
Muchas gracias, Brenda. Buenas noches, yo también te quiero mucho. Estoy muy agradecido con la Poetry Foundation, con todos los organizadores, con Make y con Daniel, que tradujo los poemas que voy a leer esta noche, que ahora estaba pensando en la extraña selección que hice. Hay muchas flores y muchos muertos, pensé que podría llamarse Flores para los Muertos, pensando en esa frase de la vendedora de la obra de Tennessee Williams, ¿no? Del tranvía llamado Deseo, ¿no? Flores para los muertos, flores para los muertos, creo que está sonando detrás de los poemas que voy a leer el día de hoy. A mí la idea de que la poesía es lo que se pierde cuando se traduce, me entusiasma enormemente porque creo que se pierde, a lo mejor se pierde el poema, pero tal vez se gana cultura. Es decir, creo que lo mejor que puede pasarle a un poema es que se pierda el original y queden puras traducciones buenas, malas, regulares, ¿no? Y porque en ese sentido el texto se reescribe una y otra vez, se colectiviza, y a mí me parece que es lo mejor que le puede pasar a un poema, ¿no? Perderse como original y ganarse como algo colectivo. Y me siento muy afortunado que un poeta que yo admiro tanto como a Daniel, ¿no? Sea alguien que ayude a estos textos a convertirse en colectivos, en este caso nuestros, ¿no? En esta ocasión voy a leer primero el poema en español y a continuación Daniel irá leyendo cada fragmento al inglés. Y son dos breves series. La primera se llama Una temporada en el Mictlán, que también a su vez trata de poetas perdidos, en este caso poetas prehispánicos, escritores en agua, y la segunda, ya verán, también tiene que ver con nombres que se transforman y seres que se pierden. Una temporada en el Mictlán. 1. Nezahualcóyotl Dixit. Una fotografía. Arqueólogo sonriente sosteniendo el asa de una olla que ya no existe. Aunque sea de jade se quiebra, aunque sea de oro se rompe, aunque sea plumaje de quetzal se desgarra. Pero qué bellísimo fragmento. Otra fotografía. Fragmento de figurilla antropomorfa, cerámica policroma, cultura mexica, periodo posclásico tardío, reza el pie de foto, reza el pie, cuando el resto del cuerpo se ha perdido, cuando la lengua se ha perdido, habla la mano.
Speak Spanish, but my Nahuatl is not very good. Nezahualcóyotl Dixit. Valerie made me practice these words last night.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's all part of the translation fun. A photograph, a smiling archaeologist gripping the handle of a pot that no longer exists. Quote, even if it's made of jade, it breaks. Even if it's made of gold, it breaks. Even if it's the feathers of Quetzal, it rips. But what a beautiful fragment. Another photograph, a fragment of an anthropomorphic figurine, polychrome pottery, Mexican culture, late post-classic period. The foot of the photograph prays. The foot, pray tell. When the rest of the body has been lost, when the tongue has been lost, the hand speaks.
2. Xochicuicatl, que significa floricanto, ¿no? Que es la manera en que, como el género lírico en los antiguos nahuas, Xochicuicatl. Una flor abierta como una boca diciendo abierta, un canto. Otra flor, pero la misma flor, pero marchita, no 2, no 3, solo un instante, solo un colibrí, dura el hombre aquí en la tierra. Una calavera junto a otra calavera, junto a otra calavera, sobre otra calavera, junto a otra calavera, junto a otra calavera, sobre otra calavera, junto a otra. Estrofa Zompantli. Una pregunta a los muertos. ¿Al canto le sigue el silencio o le sigue otro canto? otro canto, el silencio de los muertos, otra flor, pero la misma flor, pero otra, calavera, etc.
And I translated everything else we're going to read tonight, but this translation is by Jason Stumpf. Shoshikuikatu. A flower opens like a mouth, saying open, a song. Another flower, but the same, but withered. Not two, not three, only an instant, only a hummingbird. Man endures here on earth. A skull with another skull, with another skull, on top of another skull, with another skull, with another skull, on top of another skull, with another. Stanza Tsopantli. A question for the dead. Does silence follow song, or is there another song? Another song, the silence of the dead. Another flower, but the same flower, but another skull, etc.
Tres. Códice Shimowayan. Los muertos, los señores de la garganta seca, los artesanos del callar, los forjadores de silencios. Pictoglifo de los forjadores de silencios. Una voluta desdibujándose en la pintura. Palabra descarnada, nada, queda o casi, diríase, pedacito de vasija, astilla de obsidiana, orejera entera pero impar. Algunas palabras descarnadas, Tecayehuatzin, Cacamatzin, Tlatecatzin, Ayocuancuilpatzin, Temilotzin, Chicotencatl el Viejo. Véase, León Portilla, Miguel, 13 poetas del mundo azteca, Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México, México 1967. Véase, en el oleaje de la hierba, lo invisible, el viento. Toca difícil.
Hide under the podium. Codici Shimo Huayan. The dead, the dry-throated gentlemen, the artisans of the quiet, the manufacturers of silences, pictoglyph of the manufacturers of silences, a spiral fading into the painting, a flayed word. Nothing remains or almost, and so it was said. A little piece of a clay pot, splinter of obsidian, completed ear-flat but odd-numbered. Some flayed words, Teacayehuatzin, Cacamatzin, Tlatecatzin, Ayocuan, Quetzalpatzin, Temilotzin, Xicotencatl, the elder. See León Portilla Miguel, the anthology 13 Aztec Poets, UNAM, Mexico, 1967. See in the waves of the herbs, the invisible, the wind.
Bueno, debo decir que además, seguramente si los aztecas vivieran, no entenderían lo que yo digo como náhuatl, digamos, no se pronunciaba distinto, todo es una traducción. La siguiente serie de poemas pertenecen al libro de la Sodomía en Nueva España y es como el último apéndice, que es una suerte de extra, de bonus track, digamos, del poema principal y está dedicado a uno de los sodomitas que murieron ejecutados a manos de la Real Sala del Crimen durante la colonia en el siglo XVII en México, que hicieron una persecución contra homosexuales, ¿no? Y el libro está hecho a partir de la investigación del gran historiador Sergei Grunzinski al respecto, y este es como con el que se cierra el libro. Se titula Monumento fúnebre a Jerónimo Calvo, orlado de flores alegóricas y presidido por las estatuas verbales de Apolo y Jacinto. 1. Oh Jacinto, bello espartano, de Apolo, el favorito, cuidado, una mano de viento está alzándote la túnica. Oh Céfiro, joven alado, brisa del poniente, detente. Siendo tuyo el aire, no es tuyo el aire que Jacinto en dulces suspiros de amor exhala. Ay Apolo, ay Febo, ay solecito mío.
So one of the things that Luis said is that the poem speaks of Jerónimo Calvo, who in the 17th century in Mexico was killed for the sin of sodomy. Funerary monument to Jerónimo Calvo, trimmed with allegorical flowers and presided over by verbal statues of Apollo and Hyacinth. 1. O Hyacinth, beautiful Spartan of Apollo, the favorite, beware. A hand of wind is lifting your tunic. O Zephyr, winged youth, the west winds behold, the wind being yours, it's not yours. The air that Hyacinth exhales with sweet sighs of love. I, Apollo, I, Phoebus, I, my little son.
2. Aliento celoso del aliento, el viento, céfiro de invisibles ojos, espía a los amantes, practican atletismo. Apolo lanza el disco más su ruta, súbito céfiro sopla y cruel desvía. Cuidado, Jacinto, cuidado, ay, antes del cuidado, en estas olimpiadas del instante, llegó a la meta el disco, laureles para la venganza. Ay, el disco que abrió en la frente del muchacho, atroces labios rojos para el beso de la muerte.
2. Jealous breath of breath, the wind, zephyr of invisible eyes, spies the lovers. They are practicing track and field. Apollo hurls the disc, yet its path blows a sudden zephyr and cruelly throws it off course. Careful, Hyacinth, careful. Aye, before carefulness in this Olympics of the split second, the disc reaches the finish line. Laurel wreaths for revenge. Aye, the disc that split open the young man's forehead. Atrocious red lips for the kiss of death.
3. Mármol de espanto y mármol de dolor, Apolo de sí mismo repentina estatua. A sus pies, Jacinto, una hermosa fuente que emana sangre. Al fondo, 3 o 4 centauros de utilería completan la pausa.
3. Marble of dread and marble of pain, Apollo by himself, an impromptu statue. At his feet, Hyacinth, a beautiful fountain streaming blood. In the background, as props, 3 or 4 centaurs complete the pause.
4. En líquidas nupcias se desposan la sangre de Jacinto y las lágrimas de Apolo, lágrimas de semen, pues lágrimas que preñan y de pronto flores, flores. De la sangre de Jacinto nacen flores, flores que mueren al llegar el verano, mortales como Jacinto, flores que renacen al llegar la primavera, inmortales como Apolo, flores que se debaten entre su padre y su padre, mas flores al fin que se resuelven, vegetal monumento a la memoria de Jacinto muerto en la flor de la edad.
4. The blood of Hyacinth and the tears of Apollo are wed in liquid nuptials. Tears of semen, then tears that impregnate, and suddenly, flowers. Flowers. Flowers are born from the blood of Hyacinth. Flowers that die once summer arrives, mortals like Hyacinth. Flowers that are reborn once spring arrives, immortals like Apollo. Flowers that struggle between father and father, yet, in the end, flowers that settle as vegetal monuments. To the memory of Hyacinth, dead, and the flower of his youth.
5. Todo lo perdido regresa travestido de otra cosa. Por ejemplo, bajo la forma de un jacinto que florece. Jacinto, planta bulbosa de floración primaveral perteneciente a la familia de las liláceas. Jacinto, del latín jacintus, del griego jaquinsos, que significa flor del ay. Ay, todo regresa, pero traducido en otra lengua, irreconocible.
5. All that is lost returns as something else in drag. For example, beneath the silhouette of a flowering hyacinth. Hyacinth, spring-flowering bulbous plant belonging to the lilac family. Hyacinth, from the Latin hyacinthus, the Greek jacinthus, which means flower of eye. Eye. Everything returns, but translated into another language, unrecognizable.
6. Jacintos. La mañana del martes 6 de noviembre de 1658, Jerónimo Calvo fue conducido a la hoguera. Jacintos. Jerónimo Calvo, mestizo, 23 años, sastre, acusado del pecado nefando de la sodomía. Jacintos. Nada tiene que ver con los jacintos, Jerónimo Calvo, si acaso con las malas hierbas, si acaso con la nada, y con las hierbas secas que alimentaron la hoguera donde ardía. Pero estamos en primavera y otra vez florecen los jacintos. Para Jerónimo Calvo, esta guirnalda de jacintos, 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 Jerónimo Calvo, a quien solo atinaron transformar en ceniza y no tiene más tumba que el viento de la Ciudad de México.
6. Hyacinth. The morning of Tuesday, November 6, 1658, Jerónimo Calvo was driven into the bonfire. Hyacinth. Jerónimo Calvo, mestizo, 23 years old, a tailor, accused of the abominable sin of sodomy. Hyacinths. This has nothing to do with the hyacinths. Jerónimo Calvo, if anything, it has to do with the weeds. If anything, with the nothing. And with the dry herbs that fed the fire in which he burned. But we are in spring, and once again the hyacinths bloom. For Jerónimo Calvo, this wreath of hyacinths, hyacinths, hyacinths. Jerónimo Calvo, all they did for him was transform him into ash, and he has no more of a tomb than the wind of Mexico City.